This is the Michael Welch Podcast, and you are now on the clock.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny, daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty. Level up and watch that beat turn into a Bentley.
The NBA Draft Day 1 opened today, as you all know already, in Las Vegas. Our favorite Roger Goodell was there, to his adoring, booing fans, out in front of season ticket holders from all 32 teams. I don't know how you decide which group of fans, as they are divided into which teams they support. I don't know how you decide which teams are in front and which ones are all the way in the back, because as you can see on TV, they are sorted in like this long hot dog style, I want to say, layout in front of the stage. So if you're in the back, you're way in the back, because of course there's no real sides to the setup for the audience, being kind of in an enclosed area with only an opening on one end. So it's always very interesting how they do the draft. I don't know why you don't just kind of have it more of an open air area so more people that are at the location can see. Of course, all the television cameras, we can see everything. We have all the overhead area. It looks really cool. But if you're there and you're not in the front, I don't know, 100 people, I don't know how you can see anything. Regardless, we had an interesting Derek Carr haircut, mohawk type of deal, and Darren Waller as well on stage to open the draft, as well as Ice Cube getting called up out of the crowd as well to kind of get things started. No live performance, just him yelling into the microphone. Seems like we'd have that fixed as well. He's too loud. Derek Carr comes up and welcomes everyone, and he's standing too far away, so you can't hear shit from him either. Seems like they would have all this figured out by now. Anyways, finally get the draft underway. The first 3 picks are not surprising to anyone. Of course, betting odds on these players in the last couple days have completely shifted. But as of this morning, odds have really shifted towards Trevion Walker, the defensive end that kind of snuck into that top spot there, to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that wasn't much of a surprise by this morning. That allowed Aiden Hutchinson to fall into the 2 spot for Detroit. And into the 3 hole, we then had Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU. I believe it was DraftKings or one of the betting sites where you could bet that exact draft order for those 3 players on those 3 teams. So someone lost a little weight on that. But those are the 3 picks that were projected. Nothing too surprising there, and nothing too surprising most of the way through. This was expected to be not a whole lot of quarterback action. A lot of guys drafted in the trenches, a couple cornerbacks at top, and lots of receiver depth. And that's really what we got a lot of. So right off the bat, heading into the round, no first rounders for the Bears, the Colts, the Browns, the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Rams, who haven't drafted a first round pick since 2016 when they picked up Jared Goff. That was 2 presidents ago. That's been a very long time. Teams with multiple first rounders, lots of draft capital: the Lions, the Texans, the Jets, the Giants, the Eagles, the Saints, the Packers, the Chiefs. So of course we have a bunch of trades here in the first round. Seems like more than usual. It didn't happen at the top though. It happened more towards the kind of middle and bottom. And then we had a couple surprising wide receiver trades as we went along here as well. So by the numbers, we only had 1 quarterback taken, 6 wide receivers, no running backs or tight ends, 8 offensive linemen, one of which was designated as a true center. The rest played multiple positions generally up and down the line, especially some of the earlier picks. The benefit of some of those guys that are interchangeable at multiple positions. We also had 2 defensive tackles, 5 defensive ends, including 3 in the first 5 picks, 2 linebackers, 4 corners, 2 of which went back-to-back there, 2 in the first 4, 3 safeties, and altogether they gave us 16 on the offensive side of the ball, and a surprise here, 16 on the defensive side. So evenly split there. It wasn't a terribly exciting draft. We did have a few picks that were outside of the top 3 there. A lot of stuff fell pretty according to plan or prediction, you could say, heading straight down the line there. Derek Stingley out of LSU, the corner, and Ahmad Gardner, or Sauce, the top 2 corners off the board early there, to the 3 and 4 pick to the Texans and the Jets. A bunch of offensive tackles, of course. Evan Neal out of Alabama to the New York Giants, who traded up to snag that pick. NC State's Akima, Ukomwan. Someday I'll get these names right. Going a pick earlier at the 6th spot were the first 2 off the line. Charles Cross out of Mississippi State went in the 9th spot to the Seattle Seahawks, who are rebuilding here behind Geno Smith, I guess. Presumably we'll see them take a shot at quarterback at some point. Drake London in the 8th spot out of USC was basically penned into that position if the Falcons didn't feel the need to trade out of that slot. He'll be a weapon for that rebuilding core, really, along with last year's draft pick, the tight end, Kyle Pitts. There we go. And Cordell Patterson. So that'll be the trio of weapons for Marcus Mariota there in Atlanta as they're moving forward, trying to get over the dead cap space that Matt Ryan's contract created in moving him, and just trying to hang on for dear life in that division for the time being. In the 10, 11, 12 slot, Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State to the Jets. Chris Alev out of Ohio State to the Saints. And Jamison Williams out of Alabama, formerly an Ohio State receiver, to the Detroit Lions. They moved up to get him. Good picks all the way around. All teams that need wide receivers. Jamison Williams, of course, coming off the ACL injury that he received in the playoffs last season that arguably prevented Alabama from winning the national championship. Certainly took a weapon off the field that the Georgia Bulldogs would have had to account for. Jordan Davis, the big interior defensive lineman that arguably could have made a case for Heisman as the most impactful player on his team and on the field, went at the 13 pick to the Philadelphia Eagles. Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame, the safety, went at the 14 pick to the Ravens, and that was about the 10th time out of 14 picks that the broadcast team told us that they were the best selection, the best player in the draft. So we got a lot of that, of course. After that, some of the picks were a little bit more fluid after a little bit more compact and predictable kind of first section there. No Malik Willis was selected. He will presumably go at the top of the 2nd round coming up here with the the Giants and the Panthers coming around at the top of the 2nd for tomorrow. The only QB selected was Kenny Pickett, who will stay in Pittsburgh and just move over to the Steelers facility out of his dorm room. So that was another one that was kind of not too far off the nose there. 5 Georgia players were selected overall in the first round, all on defense. Only 1 Alabama player, 2 guys out of Michigan. 28 of the players selected were out of Power 5 schools. Only 2 were non-Power 5, but still Division I, and we had 2 FBS level guys selected. Of course, a guard out of Chattanooga, Cole Strange, go figure, to the, go figure, New England Patriots. And in Northern Iowa, we had Trevor Penning, a tackle, to the Saints at the 19 slot. Couple interesting observations here. The Packers, still no offensive players. 2 picks on the defensive side of the ball. At some point, is this team planning on winning with its best player, Aaron Rodgers? This is beyond confusing with the Green Bay Packers. It certainly seems like they're just making selections out of spite now. And I've been trying to talk myself into futures for winners of the NFC North Division. And either the Bears or the Vikings, hell, maybe the Lions winning it at this point. I'm trying to find ways that the Packers do not win this division, because it certainly seems like they are not trying to. Linebacker Quay Walker out of Georgia with the 22nd pick, and Devontae Wyatt also out of Georgia at the 28th pick were their two selections, the defensive tackle. Excellent picks, but also a little on the nose. The national championship team, you pick two of their players. Those may be great selections. That's great. But, what the fuck are we doing here? Green Bay, what are we doing? It's like you only watch the national championship. You're picking the best defensive players. You're pissing off Aaron Rodgers. I realize this is a casual fan's perspective, but that doesn't always mean it's wrong anymore. So, interesting team building here. Because at this point, even though the defense is lacking, building the defense and having Aaron Rodgers throw to garden gnomes and lawn flamingos is not going to be very productive. Either is trying to import Georgia's defense like it's Madden 2022. Anyways, the two biggest moves of the entire day were actually the wide receiver trades that came through. First of all, Marquise Hollywood Brown, part of this class of receivers from 2019. They're trying to get extensions and get paid and get that second contract where they really make their money, as is Terry McLaurin and A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuels. All these guys are part of that 2019 class looking to get that second contract and get paid. Deebo Samuel, of course, badly wants out of San Francisco. San Francisco saying that they're not going to trade him. Chances are, if he starts to not show up for practice and is really steadfast and puts his foot down, that he will probably get moved. He is probably going to want something in the mid-20s, $25 million, judging by the A.J. Brown contract, which is one of the moves here. A.J. Brown getting moved to the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, all these guys are on the last year of their deal. That's one of the things here, is they're looking for trades. Either extensions or trades, which will have to be followed by extensions. So A.J. Brown, getting ahead of myself here, but A.J. Brown traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. $100 million extension, $57 million guaranteed. That's 4 years. So $25 million a year. Deebo Samuels would be looking for about the same, I would assume. If he's trying to push further than that, it would be a little bit more difficult. Tyreek Hill, more years, more money per year, higher guarantee. But that's a little bit different situation with him. All these guys, at least A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill, arguably very top, resetting the market. But Deebo would presumably want that same neighborhood of the 25 at least, maybe pushing towards the Tyreek, the highest, most money for wide receivers right now. That'd be a little difficult, considering teams would have to evaluate whether they're going to use him like San Francisco did or as a running back, and he's stating he doesn't want to be used as a running back or wide receiver. Lots of conflicting information coming out of that. So he's a whole different situation. DK Metcalf, currently Seattle is stating that they do not want to trade him. That'll be an interesting case moving forward. But both A.J. Brown and Marquise Brown being traded, not a whole lot on the Terry McLaurin front right now for Washington. I assume they'll work it out with him. Marquise Brown traded to Kyler, his buddy, in Arizona. He's traded the Arizona Cardinals. He played with Kyler Murray at Oklahoma. They were a great tandem there. So he'll be playing with his partner. I'm sure part of that whole deal was to appease Kyler, of course, who's throwing his own fit over an extension. I'm sure that could have been handled in a more mature way, but he got his extension. His buddy's coming to play for him. I believe that was a first round pick and either a third or fourth round pick for Hollywood Brown there. That seems a little excessive, but if that's what it took to get him into Arizona, I suppose that works. And the Ravens then were able to get a couple defensive players here. Well, they grabbed the center out of Iowa, and they grabbed the Notre Dame safety. So good for the Ravens, I guess. Certainly seems like they were able to capitalize on that, although they will still need some wide receiver assistance if they really want to maximize the potential for Lamar Jackson moving forward. And it sure seems like the Cardinals really have to produce this year if they want Cliff Kingsbury to stick around. If not, he'll be out after this season, and they'll have to find out what they're doing with Kyler now that he has this extension. He really has to improve both in maturity and what he's able to do as far as making reads on the field. So Arizona is going to have a lot of pressure on them going into the season, and so will San Francisco. Of course, Seattle rebuilding, and the Rams just keep rolling on. So that'll actually be a very interesting division with a lot of storylines moving on. We'll have a lot of storylines all over the place, quite frankly, in the NFL moving forward. But the other big blockbuster trade was, of course, A.J. Brown with that massive $100 million over 4 years, $57 guaranteed. He's only 24 years old, and that was for the Eagles, one of the Eagles' first-round picks, the 18th pick and the 101st-round pick. The Titans then used that selection to essentially replace AJ rather than pay him. They were able to grab the Arkansas wide receiver, Traylon Burks. And that was a solid selection. Obviously, he'll be on that rookie contract, and he was very productive catching passes from KJ Jefferson last year as an Arkansas Razorback. It was kind of a sleeper with all the talk about the Ohio State wide receivers and the Alabama wideouts. And he was kind of a low-key guy that was kind of creeping up draft boards. So they basically flipped what would have been a massive contract deal to sign a cheaper replacement, and they'll get a 101. That's the early fourth round pick. Was that a great benefit? I would argue no at this point. You're kind of looking to win now. Derrick Henry is on his last set of wheels. Arguably, he's not going to last forever. You have Ryan Tannehill. You want that defense to kind of click now. Julio Jones was a disappointment last year. I'm not sure where that places the Titans. I haven't quite got to my reevaluations for this offseason. I wait till after the draft to take a look. But first thought is, man, that seems like an open division this year. What is the odds that Houston makes a run with Mr. Davis at quarterback there? That would certainly be something. If the Colts continue to struggle with Matt Ryan at quarterback, that doesn't quite work out again, bringing in another QB. If Jacksonville doesn't quite get it together yet, and if the Titans take a bit of a step back, what team is going to emerge from that group? Because somebody has to be a solid squad. Are we going to pencil in the Titans or the Colts with a 10-7 record into the playoffs, or could we possibly see a sleeper team, maybe Jacksonville, maybe the Texans, kind of taking a hold of that division or sneaking up there? Just food for thought heading into the offseason as they start to go into training camp, finalize rosters, and we get a little glimpse of how things are starting to come together for teams. I'd like to touch on something I call franchise mode, and it happens for me in both Madden and NBA 2K. I may trade we'll say, 90 overall receiver, one of the best in the game. I don't want to pay his contract coming up. It's going to be expensive, but I can trade him for a number of draft picks and get off that money and use those draft picks to get other receivers that I hope develop into a star. So I start to move that money around into different positions and really build up different areas of my squad, offense, defense. And the next season I come to realize, hey, you know what I'm really missing here? A star wide receiver. The difference between a 72 and a 78 overall may not actually be that much, because I'm not making a championship run with either one. But the difference between the 85 and the 90 that I replaced on my team, that draft pick that developed to an 85 versus the 90 that I traded away. In this case, it could be the Arkansas rookie, Kalen, that the Titans drafted, who could be an excellent receiver, but is still not A.J. Brown. I realized, hey, upgrading that one position would really be what pushes me over the top. And all that money I've been shuffling around and kind of saving away to make that last big purchase for an upgrade, oh yeah, it's going right back into the position I just moved away from because it's a difference-making position on a difference-making player. In this particular case, relating back to real life, is A.J. Brown not exactly what the Titans needed right now? True, they rely on the ground game, but is he not the dimension that the offense really could have used right now? Right now. The division's down. It's not always going to be down. But are we not in a little franchise mode here? Where I'm so concerned about my cap and how much a guy wants that I don't actually evaluate how much of a difference having him versus losing him makes. I think that needs to be applied sometimes because there are stupid contracts, overblown, where the performance and added benefit really doesn't equal the amount that was paid, and that money could be distributed among other positions. But it certainly seems to me that this is not one of those times. Just food for thought. I have just one other thing that grinds my gears like no other, and it's these player comps that are 50 years old that relate to absolutely no demographic that is watching any of these shows. So Chris Olave or Leave or Relief is what I need from these player comps. The Ohio State wide receiver was drafted. Great leaping ability. Excellent. But we're getting player comps during the broadcast for former Pittsburgh wide receiver Lynn Swann. And if it doesn't ring a bell, that's perfectly fine. He last played a game of football in 1982. It's great that he was part of the 1970s All-Decade team, won Super Bowls there, but we can't find anyone in this century that might relate to 90% of the demographic watching this show that might trigger a memory that, hey, we saw that guy play, hey, we know that guy that has that same leaping ability. We're not even comparing statistics, body size, the fact that Bradshaw only threw 7 passes per game back in the day. These awful player comps to players that most viewers don't know or don't remember or weren't alive for. So I'm now comparing Chris Olave to this guy, not the other way around, because I haven't seen this gentleman who's now 70 years old and played in the 70s ever play any football. On top of that, if you were alive back then, the Super Bowl wasn't always widely broadcasted. It wasn't always on in your region. You couldn't always see it. You couldn't always rewatch film. Most of this film isn't all available now. It's barely in color. And I just hate these player comps to players that you've either only heard of and certainly never seen. It's just ridiculous. The point of a player comp is to say, oh, he's got elements of this guy that I've seen or this guy that I know, or someone that's still around, like a Joe Montana. I don't even know exactly how Joe Montana played. I certainly know who he is, and I could certainly find enough film on him, but I don't know all his characteristics. And also, when you say he throws like Joe Montana, you have like 150 pass attempts per year sample size to look at, and that may be too many. I'm not sure that he threw that many balls even. The passing attack has literally grown in my lifetime. In this century, it's exploded. We were throwing passes in the teens prior to the 2000s. That was a regular occurrence, fewer than 20 passes per game. And that's strictly related to, of course, the passing game, but we only recently started tracking pass deflections and sacks and a number of other statistics. So just give us, if you're going to do player comps, for the love of God, give us someone who we might remember, or our fathers might remember, that our grandfathers that are still alive don't have to think back to when they were 12 years old. Just something relevant. Please, please. Or do all the fans a favor and put a little more context on the history of the game. But you're not doing anyone any favors with these horrible player comps. That's bad broadcasting. It doesn't do the history any favors because we don't know what the fuck is going on. So, figure that mess out. Get some younger guys in there to figure out the broadcast. And that's for all of these sports. Because it's not some 32-year-old putting together these graphics, digging up these people. Literally in some cases. All right, enough of that. We did have some NBA basketball tonight, of course, as well. Philadelphia in Toronto was a 1-point game at the half. It was 62-61. It looked like another low-scoring affair. Scotty Barnes for the Toronto Raptors was back on the court. Van Fleet still out with that hip injury. The Raptors were shooting 48% from the field. Only 28% from three, though. They were 3 for 15 at the half. And the 76ers were 56% from the field. Only 33% from three, but did hold that 1-point lead. Joel Embiid had 16 points. Maxey was very involved, 10 points. 12 points for Harden. 18 points for Siakam was very involved. And Butcher had 19. But the third quarter was a completely different game as the 76ers just exploded and made this an unwatchable game. They went on a 37-17 run and just pushed this game completely out of reach for the Raptors. Toronto only made 7 shots in the third quarter versus 17 for the 76ers, who were 6 for 10 from 3. Maxey had 15 points, hitting 3 threes himself, and they just blew him out. The final score is 132-97 as they put away the Toronto Raptors in 6 games to advance, and they will be playing the mighty Miami Heat. Again, Joel Embiid, that screwed up thumb that he'll wait to have surgery on. Miami's not coming in perfect health either, so that'll be the matchup there. And of course, we have the Celtics and the Bucks, which should be one of the best series moving forward in the bottom half of the East there. The second game, the number 1 seed Phoenix Suns and the 8th seed New Orleans Pelicans in the West. That was back and forth all the way through. The Pelicans, man, this series have been absolutely phenomenal. It was a 115-109 win. The final sequence went down to the wire all the way to the end. We had Devin Booker, who made a surprise start here. We thought he was going to be out for the rest of the series, possibly miss extended time, but he felt well enough to hop into the game here. He hit a 3-pointer, and Mikal Bridges then grabbed a steal out of McCullough's hands and hit a dunk to make it a 4-point game with 1:28 remaining. So previous to that, the Pelicans did have the lead at the under 2-minute mark. And we kind of had a back and forth after that to kind of end the game. Alvarado was hit in the mouth on a Chris Paul drive after Brandon Ingram missed a shot. And Chris Paul went to the line to hit 2 free throws to push the game to 6. And it was kind of back and forth from there. Alvarado wanted to review on the play. Wasn't able to get it. Nance was fouled driving to the bucket. So he got an and 1, cutting the lead back down to 3. Chris Paul went down, hit another friendly shot. I got a generous roll to push the game back to 5. Ingram went down, hit a layup, pushed the lead back down to 3 points. And Booker came down, hit a couple free throws, and it was just like that. 2 possessions the rest of the way. The final was 115-108. Brandon Ingram ended up missing 3 threes in the final 16 seconds, I believe it played out. So they were really close there at the end. Willie Green in tears with Monty, his friend there, of the Phoenix Suns, as the coaches hugged it out. And round of applause from the Phoenix Suns as the entire crowd in New Orleans was on their feet and everyone was applauding the great series here as it nearly went 7. No team in a 1-8 matchup, no 8 seed has won a 1-8 round in 7 games. It has been pushed only a handful of times. So the few upsets there have been as an 8 seed have been in fewer than 7 games. So the Phoenix Suns survive, move forward. I guess Booker's in decent shape right now. I guess we'll have to see how that calf is moving forward. He threw an air ball up with about 3 minutes left to play. So he wasn't in great condition, but he did hit a big 3 to kind of set that game-winning 2-possession differential there. So we'll have Phoenix Suns and the winner of Dallas and Utah. Dallas has just pulled ahead here as I am recording, looking to close out Utah. That's looking like a strong possibility tonight, if not certainly in Game 7 in Dallas. So I'm going to just assume that Dallas closes this out because Utah has been horrible this quarter. I think they've been outscored 15 to 20 points, somewhere in that range. So we're going to go ahead and just assume that we're going to get Phoenix in Dallas in the second round here. And this is going to be a dangerous team with Luka going up against the Phoenix Suns. But Chris Paul was 14 for 14 from the field. He did not miss a shot. He had 33 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds. That's some record stat somewhere for number of made shots without a miss. Just an incredible job by him and a clutch performance, but he needed every single bucket in order to hold off the Pelicans. Of course, Mikal Bridges, another fantastic performance, 18 points on the offensive end for him. Ingram was 8 for 19 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3. So if we subtract those last 3, kind of heaves towards the end there. It's 2 for 3 from 3. About 8 for 16 from the field for 21 points. McCollum was 7 for 16, only 1 for 5 from 3 for 16 points. Again, Mikal playing a lot of defensive possessions on both of those guys. But the Pelicans still had 7 guys in double figures and shot 50% from the field. The Suns managed to shoot 60% from the field, 40% from 3, 94% from the free throw line on 18 attempts. They just needed every ounce of everything to win this game. Aiden had 22 points. 18 points for Bridges, 33 for Paul, 13 for Booker. He was 5 for 12 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3. So that one clutch 3-pointer at the end was his only make. 13 off the bench for Cam Johnson. So just an incredible series all the way around. And the Pelicans have a great future. Zion at this time, reports seem to not indicate that he actually wants out, just that there's been some tough marital problems between him and the Pelicans, not necessarily indicating that he wants to be moved or traded. So hopefully that they work those issues out this offseason and he's able to get back with the team. This is just, they have a lot of interesting players on the roster moving forward with Brandon Ingram, of course, Zion, CJ McCollum. I don't know if Hayes will be part of that rotation. Valanciunas, we'll see. But certainly Jones is a great contributor. Alvarado was a fantastic find. Murphy, Nance Jr., who's been around the block and back again. So we'll see. Moving forward, this might be on my list of top 10 NBA teams to watch heading into next season. And that just leaves us with one round 1 series remaining. The Warriors, of course, cleaned up Denver the other night. So tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern time, is Game 6 back in, back in Memphis. Back in Minnesota, between the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies. In a great chess match there, going back and forth matchups. Officials have been questionable in various games. Foul trouble aplenty. Shooting nights have been spotty for different players, but still a lot of star power in that game. Grizzlies, Timberwolves could push for 7, or we could get a finale and a Grizzlies advancement to place the Warriors tomorrow night. But that will be an excellent matchup. 9 o'clock tomorrow But that's the last series that we have left remaining in the NBA round 1. So check that out. Keep an eye on the NBA, NFL. What are we on? What sport are we on now? What night are we on? On the NFL draft heading into this weekend, and I will check notes with you later. Bye-bye.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny. Daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty. Level up and watch that beat turn into a